everybody, welcome to the discussion portion of the playthrough where we're talking today about Western Legends from Kolossal Games. We have Dr. J with me. Always, thank you so much for doing the how to play. So if you guys want to know how to play the game, make sure you hit the link above there where you'll see Jared for roughly 15 minutes telling you how to play this. So that may be a good or a bad thing, depending.
Some people might like it. Some people
I don't know. I really want to hear.
not.
If you're a Dr. J groupie, leave a comment down below. But so, you know, if we're gonna have a battle, we always have to have Russ, the KO King. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So if you're a fan of or fan of the KO King, leave that down below too, and maybe we'll just have a informal vote on who people like more. We'll find out this. So today we are talking about Western Legends. Just Kickstarter backers have just barely got their copies delivered-ish. And I believe it's hitting stores.
It's hitting stores. I saw it on one of the stores we go
to. Kickstarter version came out like a month ago or something like that.
Game Grid had one, so
yeah. And so this is kind of a interesting game because it's different from what we've covered previously in the playthrough, and that's the one thing I like about our gaming group is we go through a variety of it. But this one is a sandbox game in the sense that you don't have to go do something, right? You get to pick your options and do whatever you kind of want, and then everybody's competing to get points.
And
this game's all about the story for me.
Yeah, and it's not like the type of game where there's multiple avenues to victory. Like a lot of games, there's that. There's multiple ways on how to win, multiple strategies you can do. This has that, but it's just like do whatever you want, go wherever you want. And there's not a lot of sandbox games, board games out there. I can think of a couple.
So what are some other ones?
So Xia Legends of a Drift System is a space-themed sandbox game.
We'll be getting that soon. I'm excited.
Is really fun.
I fell in love with that game the first time I played.
And then Merchants and Marauders is a pirate-themed sandbox game.
One that I'd like to play.
I also really enjoy. And then this is a Western-themed one. You need a strong theme to carry a sandbox game. And I feel like Western Legends, the theme really does come out.
And I love it. I mean, because you and we're usually the two people in our group that like really fall in when the theme's like super good.
Yeah.
And I love all the character cards too, where they give you at least a little bit of history of kind of each of the characters because they're famous names from Western history. And I've never been a big like Western guy, so I don't know a lot of these names. So I enjoy like reading kind of, this guy he's a thief, but he tried to live the straight life and it didn't work, so he went back to thievery. I'm like, that's kind of cool to know about my character.
Yeah,
I like to listen to the Young Guns when we play this one.
Yeah. I recognize maybe like half the names and then half the names I didn't know. So it's really interesting because you do get a little bio on each of the characters and it's fun to play as characters that you didn't know anything about. So I really like that portion of it. I love your individual characters and their individual abilities.
So I think for me, as much as I enjoy sandbox games, and we've talked about this, I, like you guys, really enjoy the sandbox games. The one downside to sandbox games is the downtime.
Absolutely.
Which kind of comes with the territory in a way. Not that you necessarily like that, but it kind of comes with it because everybody's got decisions and a story to make. It kind of takes time to go around.
Yeah, and I feel like this one does a pretty good job in trying to limit that because you only have 3 actions to do, right? Where some of these sandbox games or even some non-sandbox games, you could do 1 action or do 100 actions in a turn where you could just be sitting here where at least when there's 3, you're like, all right, Russ is on his second action. It can't be this not much longer after this, right?
And you're right. It's something that all sandbox games struggle with. This one struggles less than others that I've noticed. So, for instance, Xia, that one, you have like up to 4 actions a turn. And if you decide to move, you actually have to roll a die every time and then move and then roll a die and then move. So it does take more time to take actions in that game. Merchants and Marauders is more like this game where you have a certain number of movements or actions that you can take a turn. But that does kind of limit it. Where you run into issues in any sandbox game is like the general store. If I have 3 actions and I take the general store as my first or my second action, everyone has to wait for me to finish. If I use it as my third, the next guy can go while I'm shopping or whatever. But that's always a always some downtime. So another example is if you go to play poker. Poker can take a little while.
Yeah, especially if you're not in the city, so you're like, well, I can't even play.
And so some actions take longer than others to complete. And so if you've got 5 people playing and 2 people decide to do poker, it's going to be a little while before it gets back around to the first person. So it's just something that comes with the territory, because each player is developing their own individual story. It's going to take time.
Mm-hmm. And I should put a disclaimer. When you do get your copy, it's going to look similar to this, because this is one of our few games that Russ hasn't gotten his
with the one difference
on.
We laminated these player aids because the ones that came, when they come in the game, they are just the thinnest paper in the world.
And they're like super useful too, like, right? For both sides.
Great player aid. But
I didn't hate the thickness of it, I think, because I felt like it matched the game.
But I worry about the durability of it for long term.
It was like a textbook, a page out of a textbook was what the paper was made of.
I know, but before we had my daughter laminated, I was like, oh, we should have burned the edges and made it look more Western. Right. And then it was too late.
So. Yeah. So
do we have a problem with trying to pimp out all our games?
This one I don't feel like really needed it. So I've heard some complaints about the miniatures in this game and some of the components. I don't personally have a problem with the miniatures in this game. I look at them and they're just as good as Blood Rage miniatures.
They're good miniatures. I think the problem is it's really hard to match up who is Doc Holliday as an example.
Yeah.
I think that's...
There's not dedicated miniatures for each character, which I think could have really improved the game and probably would not have been that hard to just kind of make them match a particular miniature. But that's not the case. And so that can be kind of a downside, but they look really nice.
Yeah, and this is one of those few games I've seen, like the bases, they've tried to make the terrain on the bases, because a lot of the miniatures are just kind of flat pieces of plastic, right?
Yeah.
So, Russ, I got to ask, from your, you are our painting miniature expert. Like, how would you kind of rate these to some of the other stuff?
I like them. For instance, this guy with the coat, if you're watching on video, I think you could paint this to make it look very lifelike. There's good details. I will say the faces is probably the one downside when it comes to details. But you've got to understand, these are a lot like, I would say, the zombie side miniatures. The faces just, at a small scale, the faces just aren't going to keep.
Yeah, it's hard to get those details.
That's just, like, they're there, but you get a few coats of paint on there. They might not stick out as much. Like, it's just reality. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's necessarily a down. They're good miniatures for what they are. They're good tabletop miniatures. They're not Warhammer, but then again, they're not trying to be Warhammer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So speaking of the game, I love this game. We've had this debate before about the Wanted. You are not a track person. I swear, anytime we play a game that has a track on it, your stress level goes through the roof. But so we've had this debate on doing the Marshall track and the Wanted track, because the Wanted track, kind of, you can see your progression in points, like right as you go, because you're getting points at the end of your turn. Right. Where the Marshall track is kind of more of that slow. You'll get them all at one point. Where we've kind of had this debate where, which approach do you guys prefer to do first?
So I'll say this. You got to be on one of the tracks.
Yeah.
Last game we played.
Come to the dark side. Russ has never been on the Wanted track.
I don't know why.
So come to the dark side.
Because it sounds like a lot of fun. And I have my strategy that I'd like to try. But I'll say this. You got to be on a track. Last game, and this is where I get stuck in the story in these Sandbox games, is I was keeping right up with everybody, and I was doing fine on score, but I couldn't complete any story. I couldn't go arrest anyone. I couldn't do anything because I couldn't get that first Marshall point, and it was really frustrating. Then I got it. Then I could go around and arrest and do things that I wanted to do, and my score lagged, but I was enjoying the story a lot more. I think strategy-wise with this game, I think you kind of got to do like a Western. You go on the outlaw track. You score as many as you can before someone comes and hunts you down. Once they do, and you've kind of scored a bunch of points on the wanted track, then you become the marshal. I think that's the best. If we're going to say strategy to win, I think that's the best strategy.
See, and I'm not so sure about that because I like because
you like to rob the bank.
I do. I love to rob
Robbing
the
the bank is fun, man.
Robbing
I've done
the
it.
bank
It's
is like
awesome.
the funnest
See, I
thing
love
in
to
this
arrest
game.
you guys. That was the best. That turn where I arrested 3 people between me and the sheriff.
Yeah, so the wanted track for me is what I love to do just because and it really matters what the other players are doing. If you got 3 people who are going on the wanted track, maybe you shouldn't jump on the wanted track with them. Maybe you should jump on the marshal track to add some balance to the game.
Yeah, because if everybody goes wanted, right, you're just all going to score a bunch of points, and it's a race.
Yeah.
And I think
and
that's
you're not
the
able,
downside of
and you wouldn't be able to
these.
stop anybody who's
Right.
up on the wanted track because if you're a wanted player, you can't arrest somebody else. The most you could do is rob them and try to take their money and their gold nuggets. You know, that's basically how the only avenue you have to stop someone. But if you're a marshal player and you arrest somebody on the wanted track, they lose all their progress on the wanted track.
You'd have to try to fill out stories so that you could move the sheriff to try to arrest them.
Yeah.
It's really nice to put the sheriff places that they want to go.
The bank.
The bank.
And kind of speaking of the stories, like the first time we played this, I don't think I completed any of those. But that I think is one part of the aspect of the game that a lot of people overlook, but you shouldn't because it's super powerful, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that you realize you can only put 1 token down per turn. Because we played it and we thought that you could just
Trigger them both.
trigger them both.
And then one global guru of ours spent all his time at the cabaret entertaining the girls.
I will say that I've read some that people feel like it might be a little broken to go to the mine, to the bank, and back to the mine. And this goes back to the tracks. If everybody's doing the same thing, it's a race for points.
Well, those people have never met me because
Right.
the first time I played this, I'm like, I'm gonna go mine, and when you mine, you get to roll some dice. First turn, first play of the game, I roll double gravel.
But all you have
Yeah.
to do to stop this action, right? If you are just racing for points in a sandbox game, I feel like you can race for points in a sandbox game if everybody is just racing for points. You're trying to solve a puzzle the way I'm trying to solve a puzzle. But I don't think that's where these games shine. If you're doing that, I'm going to go rob you.
Yeah.
Right? And then it alters what you can do. And it's not just about winning at that point. I'm trying to rob you, taking away the chance for you to just stockpile your gold. And then you have to alter your play.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed is if you're constantly mining and hitting the bank and mining and hitting the bank, you're not getting on any one of the tracks, right? And if you are, you're not moving up on the track at all. That can take a long time to do that. I mean, if you hit up the mine and you want to fill up your thing with 4 gold nuggets, that's at least 2 rolls of the dice. That's at least 2 actions, probably more, because you're going to roll gravel or you're going to roll money and you're not going to roll the gold nuggets. So, I mean, it could be several turns before you're able to get there, get enough gold nuggets, and get back to the bank to cash them in. And if somebody's up on the wanted track, they could get just as many points doing that. Or if somebody's moving up on the marshal track, there's some big legendary point payouts on the marshal track that can counter that. And if your whole strategy is go mine and take it to the bank and you get robbed once, man, you're going to get stalled out. And so if you do that, you're going to make yourself a target for the wanted people.
Although I
there's
see
so
people
many
trying to
different-
do that because you're looking at, I could get, if I roll well, I could get 4 points every time I take it there. Then I go to the store, upgrade my steed, right? And then buy a mule. And I can do that. And every time I turn it into nuggets, it's a point. So I could reasonably do that at a good pace.
Yeah.
But if someone rods me or anything of that nature, alters my story a little bit, then it's faltered. The other part to that is you're really not using the sandbox for what it's for.
Yeah, it is really a story generator. I mean, the first time we played, I was up on the wanted track, and I was at the top of the wanted track, and was it me, just you and Zach that we were, the three of us were playing.
I was still trying to figure out what was going on.
I wasn't there. I wasn't here when we played the first time, but I was all the way up on the wanted track, so I was getting 3 points a turn, and Russ and Zach are like, we got to arrest him. We got to stop him, because I was making some serious, progress. And I was Wild Bill Hickok. And if you don't know, Wild Bill Hickok was shot in a saloon playing cards. And what happened was I ended up... You
gave yourself up, man.
I didn't give myself up, but...
You did.
His special ability is he gets a bonus when he goes and plays poker. And I needed some money, so I stopped at the saloon to play poker when I should have ran, because I had a really fast horse. I could have gotten away. But I was like, I've got an ace in my hand, so if someone tries to fight me, I should be able to win. So I stopped and played a game of poker, and then I left town, but it was close enough that Russ was able to catch me, and he had some cards or some ability that he ended up arresting me, and I got kicked off the wanted track. So I felt like I was Wild Bill Hickok, and I got taken down because I decided to play a hand of poker when I should have just run for it.
Yeah. Although for that mining thing, I do have to say, I do get some enjoyment where when you get to the bank, you rob the bank, and then you deposit your gold.
I will say in the game, I do love going to the mine, going to gold. What I tend to do is I like to go to the mine, go to the bank, go to the store, go to the cattle, go back down.
Russ, that sounds like what you do every single day.
Doing some, arresting and stuff along the way. So
this is Russ's fantasy life. Like,
I think another good thing is that each player has an ability. You can't use them till you're legendary 5. They're not super powerful abilities. They're fun abilities.
Yeah, they could give you the edge, but they don't necessarily guarantee you that edge.
I missed my cattle wrestler. I forget his name. But I missed his ability. Ice and Dart.
Oh, yeah,
I missed his ability last
at the beginning
because I was like, I was picking up 2 cattle each turn right from the get-go, which is really nice.
Because normally you only can carry 1.
Right. And then your brother's ability last time.
Bloody knife, yeah.
Yeah, that allows you to go through these red areas on the board. And wow, that really changes some things. So I kind of want to play with that
ability, man. That ability would be so good. So I kind of want to play as him next time we play. But there's so many people we haven't played.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
But I love the theme of each character and their abilities.
Yeah, and it works too. Like I've like the past 2 times I played, I've picked random characters, and they've all been wanted criminals. So I start on the wanted track. Like
you played as what, like Billy the Kid and Jesse James or something?
Yeah, Jesse
like that?
Jesse James and not Billy the Kid. Who was the other guy that Billy the Kid hung out with?
Butch Cassidy.
Butch Cassidy. Yeah, that one was. I always started up there, and those are actually pretty fun. Like I like actually just going through the deck, not looking to see what bonuses you have, and just picking one and going with it.
Yeah.
So
I always get like when I get dealt characters, it's never who I want. Like I want to play as Kit Carson, or I want to play as Alan Pinkerton, but I end up playing as Bass Reeves, and he's like a martial character, and he started the martial track. And when I got him, I was a little bit like, oh. He's not wanted.
I want to be a bad guy.
I want to be a bad guy.
I don't know what it is. Every time I start, I'm like, I'm going to go unwanted. Nope.
Come on,
Russ.
Like the thought of you robbing the bank, just like, you're just like, no, I can't do it. No.
Yeah. Pro tip.
Is it like a moral thing, like an ethical thing? Like it feels wrong to do that?
Plus, I don't want to put a target on my back. I'm like, they're going to hunt me down.
It's fun, though.
Yeah.
Like it's
just
like
running for people.
It's fun because you get those constant points, but if there's a lot of martial characters out there and you got a fast horse, like there was a time where I just sat here for like 2 turns on the edge of town because I couldn't move. I was too close to everybody, and I was like, if I move and do something, I'm either going to get taken out by one of these martial characters or I'm going to get taken out by the sheriff. And so I had to sit there for like 2 turns, and I got points because I was up there on the wanted track. But man, I was like, I can't do anything else. And so there's upsides and downsides to being a wanted character. It's a lot of fun, and you really do feel like you have to hide out in a cave in the desert to survive.
Strategy wise, though, if you are on the wanted track, go get a horse. I made that mistake the first time around. And
you need a horse. Anyway.
You have to get a horse.
If you're going wanted, though, get the Mustang, man, and upgrade the Mustang because it'll give you 5 movement per move action.
So I will
say you need to run away from people.
That without the expansions, Kevin's got it all mixed in already.
Don't tell me that. I'm going to go sort these out
now. There just didn't seem to be a lot in the general store. Seemed like the expansions that Kickstarter came with really just felt needed when we played it the first playthrough without the expansions. Just because the general store, I'll say even with the expansions, like I want more at the general store. Even though they're like, I don't buy everything. I just want more. I want to go into Walmart.
You
I don't want to go in the general store. I want to go in Walmart.
And I want to buy everything, man. I want to buy a lasso.
And then the stories. There is a lot of stories. So I'm not talking about the back content because the actual content there's a ton of, which is really good. But there's only like 4 ways to trigger the kind of cycle
to get to
which
those.
I guess is okay. In a way, but like I said, there's tons of content.
It would be nice if there was like 10 different ways. Like, rustle or wrangle some cattle. That should, trigger it. Or, like win a hand of poker.
Yeah.
Or play in a hand of poker. Not even win, but play in a hand of poker on your turn. And that
something that causes more like interactions too. Because I think that would actually help. You know how some people like to kind of just stay in their own corner and do their own thing. That if you had those story triggers, it would force them to try to interact a little bit more and allow the game balance to shine a little bit more.
So if I play Ice and Dart again, I think I'm going to go on the wanted track by rustling the cattle. I'm just going to go.
He's not going to do it.
The problem is somebody's going to drop the sheriff in this space here.
That's such a
and there's
pain.
no way to get around him unless you go
around,
down and through.
But see, then
Dark Rock.
I play that as long as I can. Then I just start going to put the cattle where they're supposed to be. I get arrested once, and then I go to be a marshal and do cattle like they're supposed to be.
Not the best way to play this game.
Always have to be the white knight.
I feel like
always got to be the white knight.
You go be that that outlaw. And then the sheriff comes along and goes, "Hey, buddy, you should join the law." And then I'm like, "I'm a marshal. I'm good." No.
You got to start out as a prospector, and then once you have enough money to get a good horse and a good gun, then you go and you rob the bank, and you book it, and then you just when nobody's looking, you go back and you rob the bank again, and you rob the bank again.
No, see, what's funny is at the end. There's a way to score points that I like, and that's when you go to the brothel and you just buy your turn.
You tip the girls.
Yeah.
So Russ, I just realized something. So for all you guys that know, Russ is a wrestling coach. Have you used this approach before? You see a kid in trouble, son, come here. Join the wrestling team. This will help stay. Like I made the connection right there. That's what he's doing. That's what he's
just doing. A recruiter. He's like a military recruiter.
I realized that, and
your choices are: you could go to prison, or you could put on a badge.
So this little bandit here, if you're not watching the video, the bandit in Dixon Creek, Bandit B.
Screw that guy.
He really alters the game.
Screw that guy. No, he screws me every time. I'm like, okay, on my turn, I'm gonna book it. I'm gonna go from Red Falls over to Dark Rock. I'm gonna rob that bank, and then I'm gonna escape. And then he shows up, and you can't get through him. You have to stop and fight him. And
with bloody knife.
And it takes an action. And so like he won't be there, and then whoever's before me will trigger a story. Spawn bandits on spot B. He'll drop there.
Especially end of game when you're like, ooh, I need to get my $120 from the bank. And then go over
to the ladies. Go see the ladies.
Go to the cabaret. and so you plan out your last move, and then that bandit shows up and just ruins it all.
Yep. This one has done it as well. Both of the bandit bees they kind of hose you because they are at choke points that you can't get around without going through them.
You had
unless
the
go
end of
all the way down
game
the bottom.
on one of the games. I think it was the one you won, where you went around like the last 2 or 3 turns and got all the bandits.
Oh yeah, so one time when we were
What was the ability?
He had a legendary
I got a
horse.
legendary item
horse.
that was a horse, and what it was as a move action, you could move to a bandit camp, any bandit camp, and the bandits. I was on the wanted track, and you guys ended up arresting me, and I got knocked off, and I was like, well, crap, there's not enough turns left for me to get points doing that. And so what I did was I got that horse, and I was bouncing around between the bandit camps, taking out the bandits and getting marshal points for them, and I got a bunch of points off the marshal track. And I didn't actually end up winning that game, but it got me closer. No, it got me really close. The last game we played, I tied with Zach for the win.
I will say,
no, that was me.
Was it you?
Yeah,
I will
Zach
say,
for the win. That's right.
I will
That's
say,
right.
you have got to be really sure of yourself when you trigger end of game in this game.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can, if you're in a situation in this game where you know you've got 1 or 2 turns left, you're mining for points, basically, right? Not necessarily like rolling and for gold, but you
want to get
purpose.
You want to get
to
plus
score
that 20
points.
or whatever. Yeah.
So whether it's the cabaret or whatever, you can trigger a lot of points. And if you don't have a lead on someone and they've set themselves up to score a bunch of points, this is the first time I lost to Zach. I think he got 16 points in the last 2 turns because of the turn order that someone may get 2 turns once end of game is triggered, and that is just rough.
Yeah, so everyone's going to get the same number of turns, and so whoever goes last on the first turn is going to go last in the game. And so if, for instance, I am the first player and I trigger end of game, that means it's going to go around, I'm going to get 1 more turn, and then everyone else is going to get a second turn. And so that can be kind of risky. And you're right, what you were talking about before, you're mining for points. Most of the time when you're going through the game, like you're saving up money so you can go hit the general store and buy an item that you want. But as soon as somebody triggers end of game, you're like, well, I have to spend this money to get points instead. So you end up taking it to the cabaret. And there's a lot of things that people have throughout the game that they can use to score points, but they don't do it throughout the game because they're working on their story. But as soon as you trigger it, they're like, okay, I got to dump all this and just get as many points as I can. And you can fabricate an awful lot of points in the last 2 turns of the game. I mean, that marshal track caps out with a 6 legendary point jump. If you get to the end, there's been so many times that we've played this game, somebody triggers the end of game and at least 2 people hit that 6 legendary point thing on their last turn. And so you really do have to be sure of yourself when you're triggering the end of the game.
Yeah, I remember when we were playing and I was like, crap, this game's going to end. And I misplayed one. Like, I bet you this game's going to be decided by 1 point. And that's when we tied.
Yeah,
I was like,
it totally was.
Crap.
Yeah, I think we both made mistakes where we could have gotten that 1 more point and we didn't. But it's fun that way. It's really tense at the end of the game when you're adding up end game points and seeing who won. And it's just a really fun, story-driven game throughout the game.
Yeah. So I got to ask you guys, are there any negatives that you don't like about this game? I know the one negative I have about this game is these stupid borderlines. Like, if you're playing in a room where it's not lit well, or if there's like a light shining right on the board, sometimes you can't see the lines.
Yeah,
and you're like,
so
oh, crap.
Sometimes the lines will run through like the buildings and stuff on the board, and you kind of lose them. They're really light. The ones that separate the areas. In fact, you probably can't hardly see them on the video.
It's that big of a deal.
And if the light's shining on a certain way, sometimes it's really hard to see them. I just wish they were a little darker.
Yeah. Like, and it's not a big gripe for me. But I remember when I first was playing, sometimes you'd have to adjust it for me because I couldn't see, and I thought I had to move into an extra one.
I can definitely see it.
One of the other things that I struggle with sometimes is I wish there was a little more to do. Like, I wish there was like 1 or 2 other action spaces out there that offered something else to do. And I don't know what that would be
you
like.
Do in the Old West?
I know there should be like
what would you do?
You could like break horses or something.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool,
right?
actually.
That would
Yeah.
be cool, right? Build a barn or something. I don't know.
I wouldn't mind like trying to do a train robbery or something.
rob a train. That would be
cool.
sweet.
That would be cool too.
You know, like just a little bit, something just a little bit
See,
more.
train robbery down here by Spike's View, and then like horse up here, where instead of buying from the general store, you could try to break a horse, like roll a dice, and if you roll, 5 or 6, you get this horse. If you roll under, you don't break the horse.
Something like that. There could be like go hunting or something.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of cool stuff you could add to it, and the board is a little bit crowded as it is, so it's not like there's a lot of space to add in more stuff. Maybe a little bit bigger board with a couple more spaces, and it could be even better. But I like it the way that it is.
Russ, I'm surprised you hadn't said like, add a Cthulhu or a Lovecraftian monster.
Little church. Little church.
There could be a church. I don't know what you do.
I will say I have said that my stuff about the general store, and my problem is not necessarily with the game. My issue would be with groups that you might play with that they're worried about winning the game. It's like we talked about the mining, especially if there's not a bandit there. You could mine for gold, get 4 gold, go to the store, you'd get 4 points, or the bank, get 4 points, take that $120, go to the cabaret, get 4 more points, then go back to the mine. You could do that, especially if you had like 1 upgraded Mustang. Like that's all you would need to do. And that just, even if that person didn't win, it would frustrate me in the sense like, it's not playing the story.
Yeah, this isn't a game for min-maxers.
Yeah.
Who are just, what's the fastest way to victory. And I've played Sandbox Games with people like that. I've played Zaya with a guy. Sorry if you're watching this, man. With a guy who min-maxed the crap out of it, and it was the most unfun I've ever had playing that game. This is for people who really love theme and love to get immersed in it. Also, if you're one of those people who doesn't like player interaction or like combat stuff, like a lot of like your plans can get screwed up by other people beating the snot out of you.
Yeah, so if
do not play this game, because this game is meant to be that kind of game.
If you're playing this like a Euro where you're just trying to manufacture the points type of thing.
Like an engine builder type thing.
I mean, you can, quote unquote, break the game that way, and it might not be that enjoyable. But I don't think the game is meant to be played that way. Like we said, though, you could make sure the bandit's there. You could move the sheriff, even without you trying to go arrest or rob. So you can do stuff to stop it. But this is the type of game, like when I play, winning would be fun, or the anxiety of winning it is enjoyable. But for me, it's all about the story. When I got really heated and salty when we were playing this game, it was because I couldn't trigger a story. Like I was just stuck without getting a Marshall point, and I couldn't go arrest someone. And I wanted to go arrest Kevin.
You could have gone on the wanted track.
I could have, but I wanted to arrest you. And I was like, why can't I just be a marshal? Let me be a marshal.
And I am the one to blame for that, because the very first thing Russ did was he went and he tried to arrest a bandit, and I ended up playing, what was it, the 5 or the 9 or card or whatever it was, the 5 here. So if a player defeats a bandit in this fight, they may not choose to gain marshal points. And so it really put him on the back foot at the beginning. He's like, I didn't get on the marshal track, so I can't arrest people. And it was
funny, though, because at that point, I think you and Tankin were behind me. I was like a point or 2 behind Kevin. So like I was scoring points.
Yeah, you were up there.
Once I started doing the other stuff, like I wasn't scoring points. I came in last, but I sure enjoyed the game a lot more.
That's so true.
I kind of want to play this game one time where you come in spurs on, cowboy hat, have Nerf guns, and if the person's taking too long, you just start shooting them with the Nerf guns.
So that's my my 2 cents about it. I really enjoy the game. It's a lot of fun. If you create a story, if you approach this like you do,
just having a fun adventure, right? You know?
Yeah. That's not to say you can't be competitive and try to win, but don't just go buy points.
Yep. So before I forget, how did you feel about this rule book?
The rule book was actually pretty good. I mean, we learned it right out of the rule book. It was pretty clear. If you're looking to find something like how combat with the sheriff works or something like that, it's in there. I didn't really have a lot of problems with it. It wasn't perfect. Again, put an index in your rule books, people.
Player aids are very, very
the player aids make up for any shortcoming that the rule book has. So I would probably give it like an 8.5 out of 10. It's a good rule book.
It's pretty solid. All right. So do you guys have any kind of final thoughts on the game before we go?
I mean, so there's not a whole ton of Western themed games out there that
we've done too.
There's some, but the genre is generally cartoony and more goofy than it is serious, and I like serious themes. So this one definitely
like space.
Space is serious, man.
I do.
That's the new frontier, man. That's the frontier's there.
Yeah, but this has a more serious theme, more serious artwork. It's not
the historical part of it is really cool.
Yeah, it's not like Most Wanted that's really cartoony, or like Colt Express, which is also very cartoony. It's a more serious game, and I really enjoy that. As far as Sandbox games go, this hits a good spot. I don't want to say it's my favorite because
I think it's a good introduction into Sandbox.
It's a great introduction into Sandbox games. Sandbox games, it's all about what theme you feel like playing.
Flick 'em Up's pretty serious, right?
Shut up. If I'm
Go back to your Candyland.
If I'm in the mood for a Western, this is the game I'm going to go for every time. If I'm in the mood for a pirate game, I'm probably going to want to play Merchants and Marauders. Space game, maybe not Zaya, because there's a lot of other space games.
There's a lot of good space games.
But if I'm in the mood for a space sandbox game, I mean, that is the go-to game. So if you like sandbox games, I would really encourage you to pick this up. If you like Western games, this is my favorite Western game.
Throw on the Young Guns 2 soundtrack and get some Western Legends
or just
going.
a Bon Jovi CD.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish more games would do this. Like, I love the general store, being able to visually see what cards you want with them standing. I know people are like, well, you could get Uber Stacks. We're not sponsored by Uber Stacks, but Uber Stacks, if you want to sponsor us.
Yeah, but this thing
PlayThru
like
at Ktdata.net.
Like it's got the theme.
It's very cool.
It says, does it say general?
Yeah, it says general store.
It says it on both sides.
And
it comes with IKEA instructions on how to put it together.
And you don't have to like get up to try to see stuff too, because that's always my drawback when I play a lot of these games that have a common place to buy stuff. Sometimes you can't see things and I'm like, what is over there? And you got to like get up and look. I like this where you can just look over it.
And this fits nicely in the box just the way it is.
I would say whatever character you use or whatever, go wherever the cards or whatever you buy, go that direction.
The wanted track.
You know, have fun telling that story. Don't force a story. As I tell you, I love the Marshall track. You should just go that. That's why I chose the character.
When I was playing as Bass Reeves, I was like, man, I want to go wanted. Why did I pick this guy? Because I felt like I couldn't go wanted. I'm like, that's not true to his story. I have to go arrest wanted people now. And it was still a fun game.
Yeah. And this game, I don't know why, to me, it screams pimp me out. Maybe it's because I saw somebody's copy where they put like actual plateaus out on it. And I look at this player board, I'm like, maybe I should learn how to leather work so I can make a cool leather work of this. Because I mean, it looks so cool. Yeah, with a pouch.
Slip the money.
Like, how cool would that be? I would love it. But we want to hear your guys' thoughts on Western Legends. If you played it or if you haven't played it yet, leave a comment below on YouTube or shoot us an email, theplaythru@ktdata.net. And check out our page, theplaythru.net.
PLAYTHRU.
Yeah, like drive through for that. And convince Russ to come to the dark side. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed our discussion of Western Legends, and we will see you next time on The Playthru.